50 fucking character sheets.
Hello, and welcome back to House of Bards, a podcast about role-playing games and all that stuff, ostensibly. As traditional, it's the QCon episode. It did happen quite some time ago. About 5,000 years ago, QCon happened.
So I think I to allay people's fears, people are like, delay, and they're doing the QCon episode now. Does that mean that Alex has lost interest in removing the Circle of Eight? Well, never fear, listeners. I am angrier about that than ever. A thing happened in the intervening time that compounded that as an issue that I need to talk about on the podcast at some indistinct point in the future. Obviously, I am Alex. You know about Beth, and you have heard before on many episodes of the podcast. It's Maxi!
Hey!
So, I guess Maxi and I are going to talk about what we did this year, because I did go this time. You remember that there was a last year a QCon report which was just Maxi because I had not gone, but I did go this time, and I kind of feel like this experiment was my most ambitious yet, which is a dangerous precedent to set. But
absolutely.
How many games did you run, Maxi? Was it just the one?
Oh, I ran 2 games.
So you may remember the previous experiments that I have done at QCon. The general idea is that I will do multiple different, multiple games, multiple sessions throughout the weekend. And I like them to have some sort of connecting thread, if you like. So I did the garden party. That was episode 3 of this podcast. God damn.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, episode 3. Like, back when we first fucking started, and that was like 3 years ago. And then I did the I don't quite remember what I called it, but the one with the mountain. Where, so, like, the garden party was obviously the same thing 3 times, like, compounding itself into one confusing narrative with everybody from all the previous games, you know, running around trying to do their things. And the second one was a sort of past, present, future thing where one group built the dungeon, one group populated it with treasure, and then one group went and looted it. This time, I was like, well, I'm kind of pussyfooting around the idea of time travel. Why not actually do that? And at the time that I had to submit my idea for QCon, I had been playing a lot of Subset games Into the Breach. Some of you may know Subset as the people who made FTL. FTL is decently fun as a roguelike about escaping from a, one hopes, evil rebellion movement in space. But it got a lot of criticism for its unfair RNG. So Subset went away, and they came back with Into the Breach, which is a game about giant robots fighting kaiju. And it only has one RNG mechanic, and it literally always works in your favor. I suppose the way that RNG works can also work not in your favor, but basically the game doesn't set you up to expect that you'll have it. So whenever it does like work in your favor, that's always a nice surprise, rather than making you rely on it. But one of the central conceits of Into the Breach is that it takes place in a time loop, and that one of the technologies that the mecha side have is if they fail, if they fuck up, then a bunch of these insectoid monsters start coming out of the ground, and they're like, oh shit, we have to go back in time to like go back to the start and try and fix this. So you pick one of your pilots, if any survived, to send back in time, and then for the next game you get that pilot to pilot one of your 3 mecha with their current like level of experience and stuff like that. And that was sort of what I wanted to capture, because I thought I had an idea already. And so the year I did the mountain. I felt bad because I did those 3 games and a Traveller game, and that was 4 games. And it turned out that in terms of the rewards scheme that they have going on, three games is the magic number, because if you do 3 games, you get your entrance fee to the con refunded, because you're essentially staff at that point. And that's basically 3 games of anything that is run. So if you run an RPG, you get that. If you run a war game, you get that. I'm pretty sure if you end up like as a TO for like a Smash tournament or something, then you get that as well. 4 games, I don't remember anything relevant being the case, but 5 games, you get your t-shirt refunded if you ordered one. And I thought, well, I love to do lots of games, at QCon, because I love, I love like doing this for people, and I love introducing people to D&D and to tabletop role-playing in general. I could easily do 5 games, and if I'm going to do that, like, why shouldn't I? Because then I can get the t-shirt, It's a free t-shirt. It's great. I almost fucking died. Don't do 5 games.
Seriously, guys. Seriously, don't do 5 games.
5 games is too much, especially if they have like stuff that needs to be prepared for them. If it's not literally exactly, because again, with the exception of the central conceit that ran through all of them, these were the same game. Like, I can't imagine what it would have been like if I'd been running 5 completely different things.
Oh my god.
Those, like, it would have been awful. But I had, by that point, sort of locked myself in, because I realised that the conceit that I had in mind was only going to work if there were at minimum 4 games. And I was like, well, I'll do 5 then.
You were like, oh, okay, 3, that's the magic number. And you were like, this needs 4 to work. And then you were like, why not do 5? And then, and that was like your super ego talking, and your id was like screaming, no, please, we can't keep doing this, Alex! We can't! And then you almost died. So
I mean, I imagine that if I didn't have like school going on, I maybe could do 5, because then I could have like done the prep work ahead of time.
Yeah.
Well, more ahead of time than I'd already done it. Because I would not have to prioritize school. But then again, I'd be working, so I don't know necessarily that would happen either. Anyway, point is, what was the game? What was the game, Alex? It was called the Sanguine Sets. So, the Sanguine Sets, as a concept, you folks know about this, because there was one. This is a collection of magic items, and there was one of these collections in the magic shop that you've been to in my regular Monday game, and it's an odd esoteric collection of items, all of which have something to do with blood. Like they use hit points in the form of blood to achieve the magical thing that they do. And there was one of them in that magic shop. There was also one in a magic shop for the other concurrent campaign. And initially that happened because I I was like, shit, I need magic items for this shop. Cool, yeah, nobody liked these in the other campaign, so sure, let's port them over here. But I thought, that's a very weird. Let me like pull up the my home brewery account. So the Sanguine, it's called the Sanguine Suite here, and I think that's probably what a lot of shops have taken to calling it. But it was called the Sanguine Set originally. The Sanguine Suite consists of a velvet-lined walnut case containing 3 ornately designed gold vambraces and an agate fountain pen with a gold-plated nib. The vambraces are shaped such that only one can be worn on an arm, and only on a humanoid creature's left arm. Each vambrace has a symbol inset on a round depression above the wrist, which identifies it among its siblings. So, the 3 vambraces are the Vambrace of Sanguine Speed, the Vambrace of Sanguine Strength, and the Vambrace of Sanguine Salvation. They're all wondrous items that are rare and that require attunement. The rarity... They have a different rarity from the pen, but that's by and large a mechanical thing, to have them interact differently with another item that could be bought in the same shop frequently, because they're only ever distributed as part of these boxes, these cases. So the vambraces all do very similar things. So the Vambrace of Sanguine Speed concerns itself with initiative. The Vambrace of Sanguine Strength concerns itself with attack rolls, and the Vambrace of Sanguine Salvation concerns itself with saving throws, but otherwise they all work the same way, which is when you make the d20 roll in question, after you make that roll but before the DM gives you the result, if you're wearing the Vambrace, you may give the roll plus X. And if you do, the Vambrace sinks sharp spikes into your skin and deals triangle X damage to you. So the whole Sanguine Suite has this theme of triangle numbers. So if you want to increase your result by 1, you pay 1 hit point. If you want to increase it by 2, you pay 3. And if you want to increase it by 3, you pay 6, and so on, because that's how triangle numbers work. You know, you add together all of the prior numbers, including the number that you mean. So it's 1 is 1, but 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 plus 2 plus 1 is 6, and so on. So it's the bigger a stretch you want to do, the more hit points it's going to cost you. And additionally, each time you use the feature after the first without making a short rest, then you gain a point of exhaustion. So it's really... I've seen a player use it to use the strength Vambrace to great success, just to make rolls that almost hit, you know? Just be okay, every now and then, that's +1, which is the safe way of using it. The pen copies it has a huge load of text, which I'm not going to read, but essentially it copies out the enchantments on other magic items within some limits as enchantments that can be then cast, but it uses your blood to do that, and it reduces... I did change this. I made it so that you take damage sufficient to reduce your hit points to a total equal to triangle X, where X is the rank of the copied item enchantment's rarity level in inverse order, excluding legendary, so very rare is 1, rare is 3, uncommon is 6, common is 10, as if you were at full health. So it is entirely possible to kill yourself with the pen if you aren't at full health, but if you are at full health, you should never kill yourself with it. The pen is mainly just a flavor thing. I wasn't expecting people to actually use that. But I was okay, why are there 2 of these? Why? This is such a weird, esoteric collection of items. Why are there 2 of them, and why are they hundreds of miles away from each other? And what I came up with is the idea that these were all presents. That they were goodie bags, essentially, from a party. And that all of the guests at this gathering had received these incredibly valuable, expensive collections of magical items in a walnut box with it's lined with velvet, and it's got these really nice things in it. Heard about what they did, said, "Oh, how lovely," and then immediately after they were out of the party went, "Ew."
Yeah.
And just as soon as they got home, sold it to the nearest magic shop or pawnbroker or whatever.
Yeah. Immediately we're oh god, okay, I'm gonna go talk to those 2 weird kids who run the magic shop, and see if they want this fucking gross blood-sucking pen.
So then I thought, what I was thinking when it was coming up to KeyCon was, what was that party like, and what happened? And this is where the Sanguine sets came from. So, the idea is that have we talked about the Dr. Eva thing on the podcast before? I feel like we have.
Yes. That was in the combat episode beforehand.
Oh, there's literally last episode. Cool.
Yeah.
That island turned up again. Not with Dr. Eva's base on it. It was the other end of the island, but it was that island again. And on that island there is an enormous castle. I think I repeatedly referred to it as a schloss because it was very much more supposed to be an opulent house than necessarily a defensible fortification. But I was okay, this is where this is going to take place, and there's because I realised that as part of the conceit, the players were going to get very high level, and that would include spellcasters. So I wanted to avoid what had happened a previous time that I had run a horror-based one-shot, which was one of the players just deciding to teleport out of the story. And I was okay, cool.
I mean,
this...
That's not to shit on this player. I'm not shitting on you specifically. That's on them.
I mean, no, that, from a character perspective, that was a perfectly normal thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely, but
But I couldn't allow it to happen.
Yeah.
Because it would mess up the conceit.
Yeah.
So, I was like, okay, what tools do I have at my disposal? Because there are things that I've established in the setting, right?
Mm.
And although a lot of my players would never, They never met me before, I'm probably never going to DM for them again before, I could just completely bullshit something up. But I don't want to do that because this is set in Dawnsumber, because I set all of my one-shots in Dawnsumber, because having a consistent world lets me, craft things quicker. And I wanted to... Well, first of all, I wanted to make it so that if Maxi was in one of my games, it wouldn't feel like I was just pulling shit out of my arse. But also I wanted to, not waste the experience of coming up with concepts that could be used to limit player agency as and when needed.
Yeah.
So on this island there's this castle, and a bunch of different people, hundreds of different people from across the world, have received invitations from a man calling himself Arcade Blanchard, inviting them to come and visit him for a party with gifts and shit to celebrate his accomplishments in the fields of magical science. And the thing that I made clear to the players was that while probably some of those people who received gifts were like, oh, yes, of course, Arcade Blanchard, my close friend and compatriot, or even, Arcade Blanchard, I met him at wherever. It's like, your connection with Blanchard is tenuous at best. It's like, you most likely have never met him. If you have met him, then it's like you go and pull out the guest list of something that you were at 6 months ago, and you realize that he was on it, but you can't recall ever meeting him. That sort of thing. But I made it so that they could travel by teleportation to a village to the west, and then there would be, about 1.5 miles carriage ride or walk up to this castle. And then the other conceit was that coming in there would be a mana blizzard. Now, mana storms are a concept that I have great fun with in regular Dawnsumber. They turn up quite a lot, and they have a bunch of different effects. They're a pliable Deus Ex Machina right at the moment, but as I keep using them, the number of things that they can do sort of gets pinned down more. So I was like, okay, what happens in a mana blizzard? It's you cannot teleport out of it. If you're in a building that is inside a mana blizzard, you cannot teleport away until the blizzard is gone. Otherwise, it's much like a mana storm as normal. It's you don't really want to go out in it because you'll get more than your guideline daily recommendation amount of mana, yeah. And you probably want to cover up mirrors so that you don't get sucked into the realm of the doppelgangers while the storm is happening. So I was like, okay, that will be the central. Most of the actual scenario will happen during this blizzard. So I was like, okay, and here I think is because I'm sure that you're gonna ask about what we learned, Beth.
Yeah.
Here is I think my second mistake, because my first mistake was deciding to do 5 games at all. My second mistake was making 8 pre-gens. So I had told the con that as always my games had a maximum number of players of 6. But I always feel bad for the 6th player who comes to the table, because if I only have 6 pre-gens, then they just get what's left. Which, maybe that's not a character that they're interested in playing. So I always like to make 8 pre-gens, because then there's a choice of 3 for even the last person to come to the table.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, I guess, but the thing was, the conceit was already pigeonholing players into characters anyway, which I'll talk about in a moment. So I feel like I could probably have got away with not doing that.
Yeah.
In all honesty. So I feel like there are... Oh, yeah. The third mistake I made was not being able to count. So I actually made 9.
This is There's that. I see the health bar of Alex slowly going down, but it's in a Pokemon fight where you hurt yourself in confusion. So you do fight.
The thing is, though, I already knew ahead of time that the 5-game thing was a mistake. Because I like, Alex, you also had to, like, DM a bunch more games after it, so it would be, like, 5 days worth.
Yes, because this was, like, I had to do this for QCon, and that was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. On Monday, on our Monday game rotation, it was also my game. And then, because I had contrived it to be this way so that Maxi would be here, because Maxi had guested as part of my Tuesday game before, and I wanted her character to be there for the finale, I had arranged for that to also, like, happen on that Tuesday. Which meant that I had to do 5 straight days of DMing Dungeons and Dragons, which is astonishing, honestly. I mean, I had, like, the stuff for the latter 2 games prepared, mostly, but God.
Yeah, so I pretty much knew that everything would be, like, super challenging, so, I am shocked, though, about the multiple extra character sheets. I understand why you did it, but,
I mean, I think if I went back and did it again, I would probably make a lot of these same mistakes, but I would pay more attention to the number of, like, actual things that I was making. Because I feel like that's a fixable problem.
Like, I get worn out when I have to DM on a Monday, and I've DM'd on a Saturday as well. Like, I'm like, oh, I've done a Saturday, and I'll have to do a Monday as well. Oh, and then I'm playing on Sunday. Like, that wears me out. And you have to
be a player.
That wears me out, and I'm only a player for one of them. Like...
Okay, I also have bad news. The bad news is that since learning this lesson, I have not become any better at maths. There were actually 10.
Oh, no.
So there were 10 pre-generated characters, which was 2 more than I wanted there to be, and in all honesty, 4 more than there needed to be. And you might be listening to this and be like, Alex, that doesn't sound so bad as long as you have, like, the prep time to, like, do that ahead of time, because you just make up this bunch of sheets and then you're done. And you will see, as I expand upon this story, why that was not the case. Because in total, for each of these characters, I had to make, let me see, characters.
Wait, so you did 10 characters?
5.
Yeah, so you did 10 character sheets. So you in total
5
did
times.
50 character sheets.
Yes, 50 character sheets.
That's the cold open, is
obviously...
just you going 50 character sheets. That has to be the cold open.
Fucking
50!
Character sheets,
5!
and you wonder why I almost died. Like, for real, guys. Like, I feel like there might have been a period of being hospitalized beforehand, but I did almost die.
Yeah, I remember, like, seeing you in between sessions, like, writing up, and I came over to just go, like, hey, and then I saw the look in your eyes, and I was like, I do not want to be near Alex right now.
50 character sheets.
So,
50 character sheets.
Let's go through because the way that these characters worked is that I made them all at level 1, and I had them prepared for level 5, which was going to be session 2. And I was like, okay, the first person to play a character gets to name that character and decide some ancillary notions about what they're like. So I will go through the characters, and I will tell you the names that they eventually ended up with. I cannot, unfortunately, remember which characters were necessarily in which sessions.
Okay.
But here are the 10 characters. There was a Tabaxi fighter from the Sakura Shogunate.
Okay, yeah.
At level 1, a fighter, eventually ranking up into a samurai, called Sasaki Hira. There was an elvish druid from the Empire called Gabrius Thistledown.
Okay, good.
There was a dwarvish paladin from Meslin called Grognar Silverbeard.
Nice.
A Yanti necromancer from the Pajeu forest called Ling Chung.
Mm-hmm.
A Goliath barbarian from the steppe, where all Goliaths are from, called Keothi Thunakalathi. A half-orc warlock from Varash called Morag Dune, with 2 U's.
Nice. These are some good fucking names these players came up with.
They are actually.
Mm.
Pretty good.
I like Morag June just because I like seeing like trash ladies who like are just keeping their lives together enough being called Morag. I think it's a very like scrappy name.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's just my particular upbringing.
No.
There was a human sorcerer from the Gesh called Phi Wickerflame.
Okay.
A halfling rogue from the Lorfell called Darrow Halnut.
Mm-hmm.
And a half-elf bard from the Isle of Bells called Erdan. And then finally, there was and this was where I got a little cheeky, because I thought, what if I were to use these players as a QA farm for my long untested homebrew content? So there was also a tiefling cleric of chaos from Kameka in Relend called Trust Nephovenom.
Nice.
Nephovenom.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And lots of different players had different ideas about how to play Trust, gotta say.
I'm sure they did. Because that name in its Trust, you're like, okay. And then you're like, Nephovenom, and you're like, okay.
So I was like, okay, those are the 10 characters. And I had on a few of the sheets written down, like, a sort of, in the features and traits box, because, I'm going to talk a little bit later about, like, a great thing that went off perfectly. In the features and traits box, I had written down a sort of, like, a background for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, for Erdan, for instance, it said, a boy entertainer from the Isle of Bells, cliffside capital of 17, you always yearned to travel for adventure. Paying your way with performance, you've so far only spent some time in the imperial port town of Urbing Navali, but you feel sure this adventure will be the second of many to come. So, there's
Foreshadowing.
who is like very new, which makes sense for a level 1 character.
Yeah.
For Trust, it said, you are a cleric of Sana, god queen of Kameka, one of the 7 mobile cities that roam the desert country of Relend. Whilst the inhabitants of countries like Meslin and Varash must have faith in the attention of their distant exoplanar gods, your goddess is real and present on the material plane, and you have met her on at least one occasion. Sana is the goddess of fevered inspiration. Her followers are known for their drug use, odd behaviour, and production of eccentric designs and ideas, but are rarely truly incomprehensible or insane. So from that, a bunch of different people came up with some very diverse ways to play this character.
Right.
The others I think are a bit too long to go through, but Sasaki was supposed to be a wandering, like a ronin, basically.
Yeah.
Because the daimyo that he used to serve no longer exists. Gabrius was a dream cleric from Xanthar's Guide to Everything, and I love the dream cleric because I love I think they're less powerful than the other two cleric types, but I love that they have such a weird vibe going on.
Yeah.
So Gabrius was just a sort of a scholar of dreams, if you like.
Yeah.
Grognar was very simple.
That's fair, yeah.
A paladin of Hosa, the god of metalsmithing and mining, so, stolid dwarf stock, with a strong sense of right and wrong. Ling Chung. Ling Chung turned to necromancy because on the edge of the Pajeo forest, you gotta learn not to waste resources, and necromancy is a good way of not doing that.
I mean, a necromancer's really just a very late doctor, if we think about it.
It's true. Well, they're just doing recycling.
Yeah, it's just it's being green.
What the fuck was I talking about?
Where all the different characters were from, and,
yes,
their background.
yeah. So, Morag, I love this about Morag. Morag's player, I think Morag was the last character to be defined, but Morag's player picked this up and ran with it, and I loved it. Morag is a shyster from the frozen nation of Varash. The bastard child of an orcish noble and a human peasant, she was an embarrassment, hidden away in childhood until the ever-false king, ancient lord of the Mansion of Mirrors, dimension of the doppelgangers, spoke into her ear of unimaginable power. Now, she seeks to travel about the fringes of high society, making a less than respectable fortune. Morag is a warlock of the Pact of the Tome. So, she's a great old one warlock, and she likes ripping off rich people. So, no surprise that she's come to this party. Phi is a like a farmer's girl. I mean, if you come from the Gesh, you basically are a farmer or a miner because that's the only things that happen there. But was framed for a crime that she didn't commit. This was the other character with homebrew content because she had my Marked Man background.
Oh.
But yeah, she was framed for a crime that she didn't commit, and because the inhabitants of the Gesh are a very paranoid people, she thought even if I get exonerated, they'll reveal that I'm a wild magic sorcerer, which is like not an allowed thing. So she ran away. The rogue was a sort of what am I thinking of here? Like a gentleman thief type.
Yeah.
Individual. Like a burglar, but captures the public imagination type thing.
I'd say like Raffles.
Like Lupin.
Yeah, like either of those actually.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't Loop, but it was somebody French that I was thinking of. Arsène Lupin. Yes.
Yeah.
I presume you were talking about Lupin the Third, though.
I was kind of talking about them both. Like.
Oh, yeah, well, because I completely forgot, but Lupin the Third is supposed to be
his
Arsène
grandson.
Lupin's, grandson, right?
Yeah, that's the
Isn't
law.
that- Yeah, but yeah, that was the kind of person I was thinking of. So like, these are a cool collection of characters, and I love what a lot of the players did with them. It was great. So they all arrive at this house together, and I should point out that because they come from like a load of different places, they don't know each other at all. Like, the most contact that I allowed them to have was that they had spoken to each other on the walk up, because few of them would have been rich enough to afford a carriage. That's it. That's all the introduction that you have. And Keothi, who as a barbarian is like the second to like, he's the one I realize I missed. He's like he's a chieftain's son, but not a chieftain's firstborn. So he's sort of been put into like a ambassador role on behalf of his mother, who is the chieftain. So it's kind of his job to come and do this sort of thing. But nevertheless, he's this enormous, scantily clad Goliath.
As all Goliaths are.
And many Goliath are.
Many Goliath are. Goliath, they're just... It's difficult to find clothes that big up in the mountains.
Whenever Keothi appeared, whenever somebody was playing Keothi, I was like, okay, Keothi is going to be the focal point for the next thing that happens, just because it's easier than changing the character every time, and also I found it kind of funny that this happens to Keothi, because he wasn't actually that unintelligent. Like, he had an intelligence of 11, which is fine.
It's above average, fine. Even 10 is average in D&D, so
sure. I mean, it's not like mechanically above average because those two have the same modifier. But
but
even so, it's not bad. I was just like, he's inexperienced in the ways of the civilized folk. Well, the civilized folk.
Civilized. Yeah. That's
the static folks, if you like.
Yeah.
So yeah, they get there, and this is where I introduced one of my favorites. I wanted to say stock characters, but that's when like multiple different narrative entities have the same character because of the role they play in the story, and it's like, that's not what this is. This is Madame Vananero, who you folks have met, I think, on a couple of occasions.
The world's most powerful lesbian, yes, Madame Vananero.
Very recently declared the world's most powerful lesbian because in the narrative she cannot die ever. There are lots of functionally immortal beings, but she literally cannot die because she's the avatar of the deity of death, and she has forbidden her to enter the realm of the dead. So she is Miracle Dade.
She is the unkillable
out of Torchwood. Yeah, and I was like, well, if I have this unkillable woman, obviously she is a lesbian. Like, why would you not take that opportunity?
Yeah.
To buck the cinematic trend.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of lesbian characters have died this year on TV, so I think we're okay. I mean, there's not a lot of them left after the bloodbath that was 15, 16?
Yeah, all those shows are still going and they don't have any lesbians in them anymore.
Yeah, so they've got no lesbians to kill off, so yeah. It's just the 2-1 Winona Earp, and who watches Winona Earp? No one, because it's shit.
And if you're Griffin McElroy, your lesbians don't die, they come back stronger.
Yeah.
It's true. which kind of undercuts the pathos of the end of your storyline, but nobody cares because they didn't die. So yeah, she appears and is she's been trying, like a servant is trying to convince her to stay. It's like, is Madam certain that we cannot say anything to change her mind? And she's like, no, I'm absolutely done. I can't deal with this. No, I have other things to be doing. I'll pick somebody else to. And it's clear that the servant doesn't actually understand what she's talking about. He's like, but hey, I've got to try. I get paid to retain Sir's dinner guests, you know. And she's like, nope, absolutely not staying. I'm going to get into my big carriage here with my creepy coachman, who just before we drive off will be revealed to be a skeleton. But first, I'm going to take this and thrust it into the chest of this big Goliath boy and say, you all look like strapping folks, you deal with it. And then I'm going to leave. And what was thrust into Keothi's chest is a carriage clock. Now, thankfully, all of my players understood what a carriage clock was, but for those of you who are uninitiated, I suggest that you Google image search it, because it is not a particularly difficult concept. They are small, generally speaking, rectangular clocks that stand on feet. They are designed to be principally portable, but they usually stand on top of mantelpieces, places like that. You will definitely have seen one. And as a concept, this is ripped straight from Beth's campaign, because it's a magic timepiece that goes back in time.
That's fine. I stole it off Bernard's watch, so it's cool.
It's true. It's but obviously the players didn't know that at the time, because they look at this clock and they're like, it has 13 figures on the faces on the face, and none of them are numbers that we recognize. And it has 3 hands, but none of them it's like we can't tell which one's the minute hand and the hour hand and the second hand. It's like, this is a nonsense clock. Why do we have it? The other thing that they were made to notice, though, is that where a normal carriage clock has a hinge with a handle on it, this clock has a handle connected to a bead that then runs into a chain that extends into the clock. And it the entire clock hangs by tension from that chain. So they think, obviously this chain comes out of the clock at some point, but at the moment it doesn't somehow, So I was like, okay, that's that. And they were like, okay, that was weird, but we don't seem to be getting any more information, so let's, give the Goliath the clock, I guess, and let's go inside. And so each session there would be this concept of you would go and mill around with the other guests and figure that, okay, Arcade has invited a bunch of people, many of whom don't seem to actually know him, but have come anyway, because he's rich and offering presents, and they had nothing better to do. So, fair enough. And then they go to dinner, and I get to do a big pontificating bit as Arcade, who it struck me as like a sort of a vaguely meaner Medivh from World of Warcraft.
Ah, god damn it!
I don't understand World of Warcraft. Are you winning, kids? Are you winning?
I mean, I understand
I've never
a lot.
played World of Warcraft, but Medivh was the central character, I guess, of the One Night in Karazhan Hearthstone expansion, which I have played.
Ah, yeah, okay.
And in fact, it's specifically that Medivh, as opposed to the Medivh from regular World of Warcraft, who was a little different, that I was thinking of. But there's this idea that Arcade thinks a bit too much of himself. He's good as a thaumaturgical scientist, but maybe not as good as he thinks. So he announces, what the party is about, and he shows everybody gets given a box containing the Sanguine set. It's like, everybody gets one of these. And this is great because it gives me an excuse to distribute hundreds of these things out across the world into pawn shops, people's attics, the sea, probably. You know, some people going back on a boat being like, oh,
Fuck this.
how clumsy of me. It's
Just-
like everybody looks at these things, gets told what they do, and is like, oh, gross?
Yeah, just like some rich guy on a boat just looking at his sanguine set and going, yeet! And just throwing it out into the ocean.
But basically, Arcade is really excited that he can distribute these things, like, seemingly at horrendous expense to all of his guests. And sometimes, like, I think, like, maybe the wizard and the bard would, like, try to examine these things, and I'm like, you can tell that they've been, like, magically duplicated, but there's been attempts made to hide that. So, this is sort of him, like, flexing his muscles as a mage, if you like. And all this time, Keothi, or whoever in the current narrative is standing in for Keothi as recipient of the clock, is looking at the clock and pops open a little panel in the back and finds a note which says, "After dinner is done, go to the sunroom." And then it says like very important, and if you turn it over in the same like red ink that's different from the main message, it's like all of you. And like not having anything else to do with the party, like, sure, fuck, we'll go to the sunroom, I guess. So I had like an internal map of the house. As it turns out, it was probably honestly quite like too big, but I wanted to like have like a big map of the house. This was, I guess, I don't know how many mistakes we're on now. Like 5. This would be the 5th one.
I mean, you're on 56 because you decided to do 5 games. You made 50 character sheets, and now you've made a really big map.
Sure. So this would be the 56th mistake.
Wait, that implies
the 51st mistake, because 6 of those character sheets would have been necessary.
No, yeah, you're right. And also you would have to have run at least 4 games. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
I'm being harsh.
No, I would have to run at least 3 games. So
yeah.
You know, it's like, come on, give me a little credit. So we'll like.
Okay, yeah.
This is the 49th. This is the 49th mistake.
Yeah,
sure.
I drag you because I care. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
So they go to the sunroom, which is at the top of the house, because that's what a sunroom is. You take the sun in it. This is the middle of winter, so nobody's quite certain why they should be in the sunroom. It has a fireplace in it, but it's mostly still very cold because it's made of glass and metal and other conductive materials. And they're like, why the fuck are we up here? Like, you found a note in a clock. We don't know you. What is this? And then they hear a massive explosion from down in the house. And they're like, oh fuck, what is this? And I can tell you what they did not know at the time, which is Arcade Blanchard had a plan. And part of what was involved in his plan was sucking all of his guests' souls into a big machine, a la the Scooby-Doo movie.
Wow.
And the note, which had been left there by Madame Vananero, who they also do not know who that is. They're like, there's this old woman in a big veil, and she gave us this clock. Was to direct them to the one part of the house that would be outside the like sphere of magic that he was doing that with. So they are now, though they will only find it out in time, the only surviving mortals in the entire house. So they go into this smoking room adjacently to be like, well, you know, what's going on? And they find, I had so much fun with all of the villains in this scenario. You have no idea. They were so good. They find a pair of individuals called Harold and Petunia, and this would be an older sort of Colonel Mustard type gentleman wearing brown with a white spruce moustache, and his wife wearing a dress that has been out of fashion for approximately 2 decades. Mm-hmm. Just lounging in the smoking room, and then seeing them come in, and what was fun was I got to use the voices that these characters would have normally, and yet say outrageously nonsensical stuff, like things that made it quite clear that something was going on. So it was like Harold like immediately leading with "Good God, Petunia, mortals! Well, with their souls still in. Well, evidently something very horrible has gone wrong. And then Petunia would say, oh, yes, evidently they were, for some reason, excluded. Which means that they've probably been in the sunroom for some time, Harold. They've been missing a lot of the party. Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, that's very disappointing. It was a very nice party. There was good food, music, conversation. Absolutely. We'll have to show them some of the more interesting features of this house as we lay the smackdown. Which is great. I love Harold and Petunia. Because what the party quickly discover as they enter initiative is that all of the vacated mortal bodies have been inhabited by various demons and devils. Fiends is indeed the word. So although these fiends are using the names of the vessels that they're inhabiting and attempting to act as if they are in those bodies, it's not working because they don't. That's not what people talk like. So the party fight and defeat Harold and Petunia. I think the idea was that Harold was a bone devil, so I was like, you will fight them as a human at level 1 because he doesn't think that they're worth transforming for. And I think Petunia was a thorn devil, so even then she was like, no, sure, whatever, I'll do some spellcasting. And so the party leave. I don't remember. I think the first group got to the dining room, at which point they fought a bunch of zombies. But the idea was they would go through the house and they would find more and more about what was going on. And to prevent every scenario from working the same way, I gated off areas of the house behind a concept that I had already trialed in my Tuesday game, but which is still pretty damn stupid. I call it mind keys. The idea being that these are constructions seemingly made out of lines of light that you absorb, and then you gain the psychic power to open corresponding doors to that key. And whenever I would have a spellcaster examine these and be I was oh, mind keys, and they'd be what are those? And I'm they were a fad from 10 years ago. And people stopped using them when they realized that, you can really only have, 20 mind keys in your brain before you go insane. Because you have to, hold these, this psychic power that lets you do absolutely nothing but open specific locks without a key. It's that's not good. You don't want that.
I love that it's a magical fad. That
yeah, I like the idea of oh, this is really stupid. So what if in narrative it were really stupid?
Imagine having a mind key for your own diary.
Well, that would be a sensible use because you only need one, and then it's you're the only person. I mean, we have fingerprint recognition now and stuff like that, and iris scanners and whatever. But it's the same sort of thing. It's you're the only person who can open that thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I definitely wanted to give the impression that this is a very uncool thing because I'm it is. It's a stupid idea, but it fits the use case that I have, so I'm gonna, in narrative, make it a stupid idea. So there were different levels of access, and the idea was that the players would not lose the keys that they collected. They wouldn't necessarily know at the beginning of the scenario that they had them, but they would not lose them. So there were there were 4 levels of clearance. There's areas of the house that everybody can go in, and these clearance levels only appear after the big sphere of magic thing. But there's areas of the house that everyone can go in, and then there's the green, yellow, and red clearance levels. And I used those to gate how powerful the equipment that the players could get access to was. Because this is another big part of what I was doing, is I wanted the players to pick up a lot of different magical items. Or not even sometimes just magical items, but interesting items. Because it made the decision at the end of the scenario have a bit more weight to it. So they would go through, and I'm pretty sure that's at the end of this scenario they got the green key. They got it off this sniveling little toady servant who turned out to be a Moor demon or something. I was using the Cobbled Press Tome of Beasts for times when like official sources failed me on demons and things. But they had to fight like a bunch of zombies, which I like tweaked a little bit because they weren't actually like the living dead. They were soulless humans. But I was like, that was, I think, what drove home to me that the house probably didn't need to be as big as it was, because I had 2 floors ready and they had never got downstairs. Like, they didn't get that far. They had to like, you know, go through. There was a vampire called Stein who, like, if freed from being locked in by these magical locks, would explain the concept of the locks to them so they knew what they were looking for. I believe that he only became named Stein on like the penultimate game because nobody else asked his name. But there you go. So the gist was, at the end of each scenario, and I've been hinting at this for a while, the party fail. They fail. And they, for an inexplicable reason, they see like a bunch of liches appearing in the air around them, and then suddenly the carriage clock comes to life. It lights up, the handle on the chain like pops out a little as the tension slackens, and with nothing else to do and like surrounded by monsters way beyond their power level, whoever currently has the clock pulls the chain. And I'm like, okay, so what's going to happen now is you are sending these characters back in time to the point that they were standing in the courtyard being given the clock. And each of you may send one item that you have acquired since that point back in time. I mean, I can say you can send one item, any item you liked, but the item won't be in the place where it would otherwise be acquired. So it's like if you send your own sword back, it's like, what the fuck have you even done? That's useless. And the idea was that I wanted to see what items the players would choose to give to other groups, because I was pretty sure that with D&D being a primarily collaborative game, they would try and be helpful. But given that a lot of them were not going to play in one of my games again, it's like they didn't need to. They could send shitty things back, you know?
No, yeah.
Or nothing at all. And I had like a bunch of magic, because this is my other favourite thing, is like making up magic items. So I had a bunch of like the stock ones that I had on hand, but I remember asking our Discord, and I asked Beth to come up with it. And fair play to Beth, because Beth came up with a little help from me. I think I like refined some of the details afterwards, but this was Beth's idea. Came up with quite possibly the best magic item.
You know, because, you know, there's a lot of toxic masculinity in the world.
The fun thing about QCon is that a lot of the time, at least this was my expectation, was that a lot of my players would be 18-year-old boys. And I was like, oh, this item is, at low levels at the very least, very, very powerful. But, so, if you will, Beth, can I read the item description?
Absolutely, go ahead.
All right. So this is a wooden caddy, like a sort of boat with a handle. It contains 10 bottles of viscous, brightly coloured liquid and a card that is resting in a slot at the end of the caddy, which has instructions on it for use. So it explains that all 10 of these bottles contain nail polish, and that's the other thing that's on the caddy. There's a little brush that's in a little recess. There are 10 types. There are 10 colours, and each of the colours corresponds to a non-physical damage type. So light green is acid, cyan is cold, red is fire, yellow is lightning, black is necrotic, dark green is poison, purple is psychic, orange is radiant, dark blue is thunder, and grey is force. Applying the nail polish to one's nails infuses one's spells with magical power. When a spell the wearer casts deals damage, except bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage to a creature, that creature takes an additional 1d4 of a damage type chosen randomly between all the colours the caster is wearing. And I found actually that this is particularly powerful with spells like Magic Missile, for instance, where because the spell could hit multiple targets, even if it doesn't, I have to treat each of the darts as a damage source. So you're potentially getting an additional d4 for each dart. It's ridiculously powerful. Helping another person apply the polish to their nails grants resistance to the last damage type applied for an hour. Regardless of which colours are applied, all bottles are exhausted by the application of the polish to a single individual's nails until the next dawn. So you get a bonus if you're a spellcaster for getting your nails done, and you get a bonus potentially as a non-spellcaster for helping the spellcaster put the polish on. And I was like, this is a very, very powerful item, and it is gonna bomb. And I was pleasantly surprised that it got sent back every single time.
Of course it did, because it's a very powerful item.
People love this item. They love it so much. And it was fun because it built like this, because I was like, it was generally either the warlock or the sorcerer who got it, because
I mean,
people,
it's made for them, basically. It's made for spellcasters.
It is, basically. Yeah, I think I did rule that the anti-necromancer had, if not fingernail analogues, but he wasn't played a lot, so
no.
It was primarily those two, and actually between those, mainly Fi, because Fi was played a lot, the sorcerer. But it was fun because their player would then be like, okay, who am I picking to apply these? Because like these are the colours that I want, and it was mostly like either they chose red goes in every slot, or more commonly they were like, there are 10 colours, I have 10 fingers.
Yeah.
Come on, I'm a wild magic sorcerer, rolling on random tables is what I do. And I'm like, cool, sure, let's do it. So yeah, it was fun seeing who they would pick as well. Like not just what colours. It was like, who am I picking to get this ancillary bonus? Like that, it was interesting because it was nice,
Yeah.
And they all took it really seriously. Well, not really seriously because it's a game, but like. Nobody was like, oh, this is sure. Like, okay, this is a cool item. It gives us 2 bonuses, and it makes perfect sense to sure. Who's you? Come and do my nails.
Yeah.
And I'm like, great, great. That's cool.
Yeah, and I like, and Alex like, oh, I don't know that they might not be that into it, and I was like, they'll be into it.
Well, I mean, I didn't care. Like, I was prepared to put this item in because it was funny.
But I was like,
it would either be a cool item or it would be unanimously rejected by the group, and I would get to like essentially like privately mock them.
Yeah.
For their weakness.
No, but we got
this good item.
We got to hand it to these Gen Z kids. They're a lot more comfortable with.
I mean, the other things I should mention were there was a significantly larger proportion of women who came to my games than I would have necessarily been expecting.
Yeah.
And also, I think it helped a lot of these guys, particularly those who were playing Fi, that Fi had been defined by the first person to play her as being a woman. So I think, I don't want to get too cynical about it, but I kind of feel like that may have made it less weird for them. They were like, oh, that's... Yeah, sure, let's do that, which was a little disappointing, but it wasn't always her. Yeah,
I mean, look, I love this item so much, and we've explained it.
Oh yeah, this is like
if you want to use it in your own games at home, because I'm going to put it in my game. I love this item so much, and I know it's going to make its way over to like Dawn Zombie. It's going to get snapped up super quick. If you want to use it in your own game, I would be more than flattered.
Please do. Please. And if you have like a fun story about springing it on an unsuspecting group of players, please tell us because it would be very funny.
I want to know.
But if you have like a heartwarming story about them instantly taking to this item and like, because I think that's the thing I love about it is it's not just like a fun joke to play on people who are maybe insecure in their masculinity. It's also like a bonding exercise.
It is. It's cute as hell.
It's like who am I going to pick to get this like extra bonus?
Yeah, and now I know I brainstormed a lot of other makeup items. There was, in fact, I did try and make a full set.
The major problem that I had with those was I was like, I don't want to have lots of makeup items because that feels pointed.
Yeah.
Unless they're like a matched set and there's some bonus for having all of them.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really fit with mechanically. Like, I don't think that would happen, is the problem. Like, I don't think they would get them all. It's like they'd get more than one and then they'd be confused. But, like, they wouldn't get all of them because the map was so large and they got to explore so little of it before time was up.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, let's restrict ourselves to this one really good item.
Yeah.
And No, it got sent back every single time. Like, they were like, no, this is super good.
Yeah.
we will send it back.
Future me is gonna need this. Past me is gonna need... Yeah.
So, the idea was that every new game, with the exception, I guess, of the first two, second game transition where it was 4 levels, the players leveled up 5 levels. And this is where I say that, like, where I, like, explain that the whole really 4 games minimum works for this thing, because otherwise you start getting into, like, a position where it's too many levels. It's like, the players need to be level 20 at the end of the, in the final game. But how many games can I get away with this in?
Yeah.
You know, what's the minimum number of loops that I can Groundhog Day these people? Which apparently, if you're making a Groundhog Day parody in any sort of medium, is like the thing that you need to think about. It's like, what is the minimum number of loops that I can get this point driven home in?
Yeah.
Because it will be boring otherwise. So I guess you could abstract away the idea that, like, no, you actually can't, because they they just, like, level up, like, so they were level 5 in the second game.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the stuff behind the green doors is, like, you know, geared for you to fight if you're level 5. And they would meet Harold and Petunia again.
Mm-hmm.
And the fun thing about this is, until the end of the experiment, the player characters never remember that they're rewinding time.
Mm.
Like, they just get these items in, like, a big clattering pile on the cobbles, like, when they're in the courtyard the first time. Like, where the fuck did these come from? We better take them, I guess.
Mm.
In addition to this weird clock gift that we got. But the fiends start remembering, like, a couple of cycles in.
Mm.
And in particular, there was an individual called Clarence. Clarence is, in all honesty, probably my favourite villain that I've ever done. Like, I love Clarence so much. Clarence is a Cambion, which is in the Monster Manual. They're sort of like half demons, which I didn't really like, so I made them more like... if you imagine like a tiefling is a human that's got had some demon in them somewhere up the family tree. Like, a Cambion is the opposite thing. A Cambion is like a
demons have some human in them.
Like a descendant of a fiendish lineage who has been, like, tainted by mortal blood.
Right. Okay.
And as I was, because I'd never done anything with Cambions before, but as I was, like, you know, playing Clarence as a character, I was building up this mythology around Cambions and what they were going to be like in my setting. And I was like, Cambions are, like, they're wet and they're sniveling, and their whole thing is to try and curry favour with more powerful fiends by being ideas men. Like, they come up with, like, plans for, like, horrendous schemes to pull in the realm of fiendish evil, and then they go around like little entrepreneurs trying to pitch those schemes to, like, fiendish beings that are actually powerful enough to make it happen.
So, like a contestant from The Apprentice, then?
I mean, like, kind of, except they try not to compete with each other, so it's more like they're making, like, elevator pitches to Bill Gates.
Okay.
You know, which for Clarence. So the reason he's called Clarence is because of a really fucking stupid joke, and the joke is that he has hold of the red key.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want the highest level of clearance, you go to Clarence. But also, I feel like Clarence is just an inherently petulant sounding name.
It is, isn't it?
Which I think, like, influenced my, like, reasons for playing him this way. So Clarence, and God, I know that I'm, like, talking on, like, this is a very difficult concept to explain top down without, like, taking you through the whole, like, 15 hours of playtime. Clarence's whole deal is that he's set this whole thing up, or so he thinks. His idea was, there's a bunch of demi-liches under the like in the Well of Horrors in Varash, and all they need to come out and take over the world is souls, because there aren't any souls down there, so they basically all like wasted away to nothing. If we were to get a fuck ton of souls in one place and then just send them over, and we could like teleport these liches back, and then as long as we had like whoever it was that we were making do this, we like made him a lich as well. Like if he was like a powerful necromancer who was thinking of doing that anyway, we could just be like, hey, these liches are liches, but they became that way naturally by like a process called the Lich Event Horizon. So they're not as powerful as liches who became that way through like the force of magical science.
Mm-hmm.
So you could totally be their Lich King and then just, take over the world of mortals. And Clarence's eventual plan is that the liches will exterminate all mortal life on the material plane, which is why he's so anxious for this plan to work, because in order to find a buyer, basically, he's had to betray the regular fiendish houses and pitch this to Ataramaksu, the Demon Lord of Death, who is in exile and not well liked by Skedrenth, the God of Demons, or any of the other like devilish or demonic houses. So Clarence's thing is like, if this doesn't work, I'm fucked, because everyone will know that I threw my lot in with Ataramaksu, as well as like all of these, ancillary demons. So Clarence is, by the time he first meets the party, already really fucking annoyed. Like, horrendously annoyed. Because he, more so than they, is like very good at figuring out when someone is rewinding time. It's just, I was like, sure, that's an ability that Clarence naturally has. And so, like, when they find him, he's like, what the fuck? Stop doing this. Because I can't do anything about that. I'm going to kill you before you get the chance to do that again, because you're fucking up my plan, And by this point, like, the players have already met, like, the second Keykeeper before Clarence, and another, a Tanaruk, actually, which is like a demonic orc thing, hiding inside a 16-year-old maidservant called Alice. And, bursting forth in a cloud of viscera and stuff like that. Because, we want all that good Doom shit.
Yeah.
But Clarence is, like, massively annoyed. And I think the first party that met him defeated him by banishing him. And he's like, what? No, I don't have a counter to that. Ah! And, of course, because he's a fiend, like, banishment is already a very powerful spell, but if you use it on an exoplanar being, they don't come back, because they get sent to the plane that they came from originally, and now they're stuck. You banish something terrestrial, it's going to come back in, like, 6 minutes or whatever. No, like 1 minute. But you banish, like, a fey being, or a demon, or, like, an elemental, and gone for good. So he drops the key. And then I was like, on the subsequent run-throughs, of which there were 2, I was like, okay, so that was game number 3. Game number 4, I was like, okay, they have all levels of clearance now, so they're able to access these really powerful magic items. I think at this point, Clarence should come back into the story. Because, obviously, if this is the story that I've like come up with for him, he's not going to stop at being defeated once. Because they rewound time, right? So he's now back in the house. So Clarence got Harold, the Bone Devil, and Alice the Tanaruk together, and laid a trap for the party in the Turkish bath, which I presume in universe was called something else, because, Turkey. The maps that I was using were taken from, like, actual castle maps, which, like, this particular castle had a Turkish bath. Sue me. And that was really the conclusion of that scenario. Like, I ended up actually having to rush through that fight, because I didn't realize, like, how quickly that particular session would be over. And that was the session that you were in, wasn't it, Maxi?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So at that point, I was like, okay, session 5 is different, because session 5 is the player characters are 20th level, and this time they remember everything. I decided that in order to make sure that they didn't fuck themselves, I would wait until the sunroom before they remembered everything. But as soon as that happened, I was like, it just jogs your memory, and you remember everything that happened. You remember that you've rewound time 4 times, and you remember what Arcade has presumably done. You remember Clarence and the other fiends, and that session was about them trying to find where Arcade was so that they could fight him. And I think they eventually beat it out of the little like Moor demon guy who's like scuttling about. So they go down to the basement because they were like, okay, he's in the basement, and they find Arcade and Clarence. And this is where Clarence has gone to warn Arcade because he's realised that the party are getting more and more powerful each time they reset. So he's like, fuck, they're coming for Arcade next. I've got to go and warn him. And to their credit, the party ended this fight so fast that I didn't have a chance to like put this part in. But Arcade knew that Clarence was manipulating him. and would have said, like, I'm not going to exterminate all mortal life, Clarence. I know that's what you want me to do. Like, I'm gonna rule over it with my army of liches, but fuck you and your demon lord. I don't care. I'm Arcade Blanchard. I'm like the most powerful wizard in the world. He isn't, but that's what he thinks he is. But he has this big like glass sphere that he's containing all of the souls in. That's the soul sucking machine. And then I'm like, okay, most of the session is going to be this fight with Blanchard. You gotta fight him, which they did. And I think there were only 3 of them. I think the final group, because definitely most of the other groups, like I had like 5 or 6 people, but this one ended up only having 3. And I'm pretty sure that it was Trust the cleric, Sasaki the samurai, and Fi the sorcerer. And I think the rogue might initially have been there, but then the player had to leave because he was sick. So I was like, okay, that's the last 3, which is fair actually because those are great characters. So they open the fight, and Fi immediately gets. This was the thing, right? The 4th and 5th sessions happened on the same day, and I had not had time to make 20th level pre-gens. So, to them, to the players who turned up for the 5th game, I was like, this entire session is going to be one fight. Can you level up these 15th level characters to 20th level? And so the fun thing about that is, as opposed to me setting up pre-gens like normally, like I would, they got to choose all of the shit that they got that was different to 20th level. Now, they didn't get to choose like abilities and things because, again, don't let me forget about the ability thing because I will talk about it, but it's ancillary to like what I'm talking about at the moment. What is important here is in terms of 9th level spells, Fi's player got to choose which one she got, and he chose, if I can remember it correctly, is that Meteor Swarm.
Okay.
Because he'd taken very much into the idea that Fi is a pyromaniac.
Right, yeah.
You know? And I was like, Meteor Swarm? Because I had said, specifically about this, because I knew that 2 players were playing spellcasters, I was like, you have access to 20th level spells. You get to choose what the 20th level spells that you know are. Tell me if you are going to pick one of these 2 spells. And the 2 spells that I told them, like, tell me, like, you're allowed to pick these, but tell me if you're going to pick them, are Wish and Time Stop. Because Wish has to have some limits on it in a, like, gimmick game like this. Because otherwise you're like, I wish Arcade Blanchard had never done any of this. And you're like, cool, you've fixed everything.
You've done it. Well done.
You know? It's like, basically, the wish thing is like me warning the players, like, I have final say on what you can and can't wish for, but if I reject something, you can wish again.
Yeah.
You can keep wishing until you get something you're allowed, basically. I'm not gonna let you waste your wish. Time Stop, I wanted players to tell me about, because Time Stop sucks ass. It's a terrible spell, and it does almost nothing. And so what I wanted to tell them is, I have a homebrew like replacement for Time Stop that I think works better and is based on the cool as fuck intro to the Destiny 2 Curse of Osiris DLC, which incidentally was much more interesting than the actual DLC was. So, but no, turns out they didn't pick either of those. Instead, the sorcerer picked Meteor Swarm, which just fucking leveled the playing field, if I'm quite honest, because like it was such a big arena that they could quite easily catch Clarence and and Arcade in the Meteor Swarm and nobody else. And the only like casualty would be the Soul Machine.
Yeah.
So Clarence got fucking killed, and like in the fourth session, Clarence had also been banished because like the cleric knows banishment, and banishment is an easy way of like getting rid of a specific powerful threat, especially if it's exoplanar. So as he's being like pummeled to actual death by meteors, he's like, well, at least I didn't get banished this time.
Yeah, there's always a bright side, Clarence.
Yeah.
But he didn't say it in that voice because it's like, oh, Clarence talks like this. You know, he's a geezer, or he sounds.
He tries to be a geezer.
He sounds like a fucking Bloodborne NPC. He sounds like Patches. Actually, I was thinking of Patches the entire fucking time. I was like, this guy should be a dick and like not trustworthy. Arcade, meanwhile, just pontificates a lot like this. And like Arcade was left alive because as a lich he had. Oh yeah, Arcade's a lich. Like 20th level in his lair lich, so 23rd level I think.
Yeah.
And he's taking his lair actions and everything. So he's like, well, I'm because I was like, oh shit, I need to communicate the puzzle solution because basically this was not really necessarily a puzzle solution so much because they would never know. They would never. It involved pieces of the puzzle that I had no reason to mention up until this point. And, you know, long-standing players in my games would know about them, but I was like, no, I gotta give them a fighting chance. So I basically had him pontificate about how they'd like forced their way down into his inner sanctum by extorting his minions and were fighting him one-on-one and had destroyed the Soul Machine. And he's like, this is all very weird. Why would you do it this way? You know? If you wanted to stop me, there were so many ways that you could have done this. You could have, for instance, taken an important part of the machine, like the Star Roman that burns at the center of it, and it would not have worked, and I would not have been able to do the thing that I was going to do. And then I had him use what was the so he has legendary actions, but he also has lair actions, and those are separate things. And I'm pretty sure that one of his lair actions is relevant. Oh, yeah. He would, like, target people and, like, make them take necrotic damage on a failed constitution throw. And I just flavored that it was, like, the souls from the Soul Machine just, like, passing through them. Oh, no, that was the spirits of creatures that died in its lair. These apparitions materialize and attack one creature. Yeah, okay, that one. So, Fi was almost fucking dead, because he just immediately was like, no, you don't get to do that again. And as a legendary action, he can use Paralyzing Touch. And I don't remember how, but the Cleric Trust got right up next to him. I think it was that he got like 30 feet in and like Arcade moved towards him and then like used the legendary action at the end of somebody else's turn. So here's the thing about the Chaos Cleric homebrew. I think tried to like balance it a little bit more recently because I feel like the wild redirection ability is too powerful. Currently, the cleric can use it a number of times equal to their wisdom modifier, like a bunch of other cleric like abilities. I kind of feel like I want to make it a once per short rest thing, or maybe even once per long rest. So, the way that wild redirection works is from first level, when a creature within 5 feet of you that you can see attempts to make an attack against you, you can use your reaction to teleport the attacker to within 5 feet of a friendly creature making its attack against that creature instead. And that's friendly to you, not friendly to the monster. So you're basically like chucking someone else in it, presumably the tank. You must choose to use this ability before the DM reveals whether the attacking creature would hit you. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier, a minimum of once. Yeah, I think maybe this needs to be like a once per rest thing. Especially since at 6th level, you get an ability called Vortex of Redirection. At 6th level, you can use your wild redirection ability on any creature making any kind of attack against you. You may also now use the ability at any time during that creature's attack, provided you use it before either the creature deals damage to you or the creature's turn ends. You may now also redirect the attacking creature to attack other enemies and neutral targets, as well as targets friendly to you. All other aspects of the wild redirection ability remain the same. So, literally all that he does is like, no, you're going to attempt to paralyzing touch the samurai instead. And, no, not the samurai, the bard. The bard? No, the bard wasn't there. It must have been the samurai. Yeah, the which he fails because the samurai made the saving throw against his paralyzing touch ability. Saving throw? No, it's a to hit. He didn't hit, basically, is the point. But now, Arcade is 30 feet away from the cleric and right next to the samurai. And for those of you who haven't read Xanathar's Guide to Everything, the thing that samurai are very good at is attacking a lot. The point was, the samurai had the next turn and just fucking murdered him. Just kept on hitting him until he died. And the fun thing about this was, like, the cleric and samurai players had actually played those characters before and had come back because they were like, we have to know how it ends. And I'm like, wow, you know, I wove a story so good that these players came back. And so they were overjoyed at being able to just straight up kill Arcade. And I was like, well, that's cool, but Arcade told you that you basically can't save the people whose souls he stole, you know, because you destroyed the soul machine. They can't be put back. You've killed a fuck ton of people. And bless them, they were intelligent enough to figure out what he'd said before, and they were like, hey, if we like look through the rubble, basically, and we find the Star Omen, this like tiny tiger eye type gem, and we send that back in time, he can't use the machine, right? And I'm like, well, you think so? You think that's how it works? So they did that. They sent it back in time, and ta-da! It worked, because that was what I had been like laying for them. And so because then I was like, well, the problem now is that you remember all of the times that you rewound time, which means that you have to go to this party and like eat at this dinner for the 6th time. And now you remember how interminable it was the first 5 times. But Blanchard goes away and then eventually comes back, and he's just really disappointed because he can't get his machine to work. And he's just like, oh, yeah, I guess I'm not in the party. I'm sad it didn't work. And everybody goes home. And I actually had it that, like, when they're given the clock by Madame Vananero, they actually just give it back immediately. I was like, no, we're done. We did it. And she's like, wait, really? And they're like, yep, totally sorted. And she's like, oh, right, you're all, like, beefed as fuck. You know? I was just gonna, like, you know, trust you based on that, but obviously you've been... How many cycles did it take you? And they were like, 6. And she's like, that's all right. And offered to, like, let them not join the knitting circle, but, like, become associates of it, which I thought was a fun ending for that. But I was like, okay, cool. This time travel concept, I think, really works. It's fun. And it meant that, like, some of the players had an investment in what happened in the game, like, far beyond their involvement. Necessarily, some of the characters acted a little bit weird, because obviously if you have a different actor playing the character every time, like, it's going to be different. Like, people had very different interpretations of what trust should be like, and I think a couple of different interpretations of what Morag should be like. Kaothi was generally played as kind, but not particularly intelligent, which is, like, fine. That's... sure. You know? Beyond that, it's like... it was fun, and it was good, and I almost died. Fuck ever doing that again. But it was a grand extravaganza, and I feel like... I think I mentioned this before, but I can't keep thinking that I have to do bigger and better than last time, because that's not sustainable. And I think if I've got to the point of introducing the concept of actual time travel into the setting, then that's probably as far as we can go with that. But I had a lot of fun, and I like a lot of these items. Some of them were repeats from elsewhere. One that was particularly helpful is called the Buffing Bullhorn, which, when sounded, upgrades all normal or plus X weapons to the next vanilla magic weapon tier for the next minute, that are, like, within a 10-foot radius of the person using the bullhorn. Which is just helpful for, like, if you don't have a magic item already, a magic weapon, it's going to be, like, difficult to actually fucking fight a lot of these things, because they're, like, immune to non-magical damage. So, yeah. There was also the Thirsting Blade, which has just turned up in the Monday campaign as well, in Zell's hands, and Zell is not happy with it.
No, she fucking hates it. It's a horrible, evil weapon, and she's never going to use it.
No, it was not particularly complicated, but again, like I think we say every time, this is not... You can put a lot of complex shit into a tournament scenario. Well, not a tournament scenario, because this is not a tournament, but like a convention scenario. provided you understand that you're probably going to be the only person who actually appreciates it. Which is fine. Like, I'm fine with doing that because it feels like taking more of an ownership over the material, which I need to properly get into character. But it was fun. I don't know that there was necessarily like a lot of artistic merit to what happened, if you'd say. So that was me. That was what I did over QCon.